She said she needed space, so I waited weeks, until I saw him holding her in the photos from her solo trip, where she promised to find herself without me. My girlfriend, Emily, said quietly over coffee, "I need space. Please don't text or call." There was no fight, no tears, just that clinical calm people use when the decision's already made. I nodded, paid the bill, and walked her to her car. She hugged me like a relative, polite, detached, already halfway gone. That night, I deleted our message thread, turned off notifications, and packed a bag. I drove north, out of Chicago, into a gray stretch of Wisconsin highway until my phone lost signal. I rented a tiny cabin by a frozen lake and spent the weekend pretending that solitude was a choice. 3 days later, she posted on Instagram, "New beginnings, herb sparkles." And there he was, Jason, the just a friend from college guy. I didn't text, didn't rage. I just watched the likes climb, the comments roll in. "You look so happy. Finally living your truth." That night, I ate dinner alone in an apartment that still smelled like her shampoo. Silence has a way of sounding louder than any argument. Word travels fast in Chicago, faster when it's dressed in pity and wine. By the following weekend, Emily had rewritten our breakup into a parable about empowerment. I heard through a mutual friend that she was finally finding herself again, after surviving my control issues, that one stuck in my teeth. I'd never once told her who to see, what to wear, or where to go. The only thing I ever tried to control was my own reaction when she'd go silent for days, then reappear with stories that didn't quite add up. At a friend's birthday, one I didn't attend, though half the guest list sent me videos, Emily was center stage, cocktail in hand, wearing the jacket I'd given her last winter. She laughed into someone's phone camera and said, "Some men think space means pause. No, sweetheart, it means exit." Cue laughter, glass clinking, that same brittle confidence people use when they're trying to convince themselves. I didn't respond. I didn't post cryptic quotes or text her at midnight. Instead, I cleaned house literally and digitally. The apartment had her fingerprints everywhere. Her favorite mug, a drawer of old receipts, a sweater still hanging on my chair like it was waiting for her shoulders. I started with the tangible, boxed up her things carefully, labeled them, dropped them off at her sister's place with a short text. "These belong to Emily. Wish her well." No punctuation, no passive aggression, just finality. Then I moved on to the invisible mess. Canceled shared streaming accounts, changed my Netflix password, unlinked our Spotify family plan. Tiny administrative funerals for a life that used to feel solid. I even went through my phone, deleting shared photos from cloud backups, the ones I'd been too sentimental to touch before, while she filmed sunsets on her stories with captions like, "Healing takes courage," and "Learning to breathe again." I was doing my own version of healing, methodical, boring, private. I created a folder on my desktop titled Boundaries. Inside it, I started keeping screenshots, messages, timestamps, odd inconsistencies from the past few months. A dinner she supposedly had with coworkers that matched the same night Jason tagged a photo at the same restaurant. A charge from a boutique I'd never been to that she swore was for a friend. Every file I saved was like exhaling after holding my breath for too long. Documentation didn't feel bitter, it felt clarifying. Not revenge, not paranoia, just peace with evidence. I stopped checking her social media after that. The less I knew, the calmer I got. The quiet between us stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like a gift. It's funny how space fills itself, hers with people, mine with order. While she curated her freedom in soft filters and beach captions, I rebuilt my life in silence and spreadsheets. One night, while archiving old photos, I found the first picture we ever took together. Us at Navy Pier, her hand hooked through my arm, that fearless smile that made me forget every red flag fluttering behind her. I almost deleted it. Instead, I moved it to the Boundaries folder too, not as evidence, as reminder. Some people fill silence with words. I filled mine with facts. 2 weeks passed. Long enough for the ache to dull into something steadier, like background static. I'd almost started to believe that silence had done its job, that Emily had moved on with her new audience and I'd get to keep my peace. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps that made my stomach drop before I even looked through the peephole. Emily. Hair perfect, eyes sharp. Behind her, Jason, the friend from college, turned something else, holding up his phone like a body cam. She smiled, thin and brittle. "Why did you change the locks?" My voice came out calm, practiced. "You asked for space," I said. "I made some." Jason shifted the phone closer, the red recording light reflecting in the hallway mirror. "He locked her out. This is abuse." Abuse. The word hung heavy, poisonous. I opened the door just enough to slide a paper through the crack. The lease. My name. My rent. My key. "Everything inside belongs to me," I said quietly. Emily blinked, as if logic was a language she hadn't heard in years. Then she raised her phone too. "Wow, so this is how men punish women for choosing themselves." Her voice got louder, performative, almost rehearsed. The hallway light flickered overhead as she started live streaming, the little red "Live" icon glowing like a siren. Comments began to scroll up her screen. "Girl, stay strong. Call the cops. Expose him." I could see Jason behind her, feeding lines under his breath. "Say you're scared," he whispered. "Say he threatened you." My pulse didn't even spike. I'd been expecting this. That's the thing about people who crave chaos. They always circle back when the spotlight dims. I let her talk. Let her followers fill the silence with outrage emojis and empowerment slogans. Then, when she paused for breath, I simply said, "You're trespassing. This is your notice to leave." I shut the door, slid the chain, and listened as the muffled voices outside turned into a one-sided broadcast of my hallway. Jason kept narrating like a bad true crime host. "We're documenting everything in case we need to press charges." Press charges for what? Owning my own lock? I sat down on the couch, opened my notes app, and typed. Attempted re-entry, 7:47 p.m. Recorded live stream ongoing. No contact made beyond verbal acknowledgement. A few minutes later, the sound faded. The elevator dinged. Silence returned, heavier this time, but clean. Later that night, I checked the boundaries folder. Added a new subfolder. Incidents. Saved screenshots of her livestream, her captions, the comments accusing me of being a manipulator. I didn't argue, didn't post a rebuttal. I didn't need to. Facts age better than outrage. By midnight, I'd made tea and watched her streams replay. 2 people outside a locked door. Confusing drama for justice. She kept saying, "This is how men punish women." But all I saw was her reflection in the glass. Eyes darting, desperate for attention that wasn't there. When the video ended, I closed my laptop. The apartment was finally quiet again. And in the middle of that quiet, I realized something. She didn't come back for closure. She came back for an audience. And I refused to give her one. 2 days later, there was another knock. Not timid this time, but rhythmic and rehearsed, like they'd practiced it in the car ride over. Through the peephole, I saw the trio. Emily, her mother, and her best friend, all armed with their phones. Each camera already rolling, each face carefully set in a mix of outrage and righteousness. "We're just here for her stuff," her mother said, tone clipped, like a lawyer on cross-examination. "Only at the door," I replied. "Everything's boxed and labeled." I stepped aside to reveal the 4 neat boxes stacked in the entryway. Box number 1, clothes. Box number 2, books. Box number 3, makeup and bathroom items. Box number 4, miscellaneous, which, ironically, was mostly apologies she never gave. Emily's eyes flicked from the boxes to my face, disbelief mixing with fury. "Are you serious? For years together, and now I have to sign receipts." "Adults keep records," I said evenly. I handed her a single page, a brief acknowledgement of pickup with a line for her signature. "It's just to confirm you received everything. Protects both of us." Her mom scoffed. "You're treating her like a criminal." "No," I said. "Like a former partner with boundaries." Emily refused to sign, of course. Instead, she launched into another impromptu performance for the camera. pacing in the hallway like a witness giving testimony to a jury of her followers. See what I mean? 4 years and now it's paperwork. You think this is love? This is control. I didn't answer. I stood quietly while she filmed, the lens flicking between my face and the boxes. Her friend panned the shot like she was capturing evidence for a documentary titled Men and Their Emotional Terrorism. It would have been almost funny if it weren't so exhausting. When the elevator finally closed on them and their entourage of indignation, I leaned against the door and let the silence stretch. For the first time in months, the air felt still, not empty but orderly. The apartment, stripped of her perfumes and noise, sounded like itself again. I went room to room, making sure everything of hers was gone. The closet was mine again, just my shirts, lined up like witnesses. The bathroom counter, finally clear of serums and half-used lipsticks, looked like a crime scene after cleanup. That afternoon, I logged into my bank app and checked the title for the car. A used Honda Civic that she'd driven exclusively but never transferred into her name. I'd paid for it outright 2 years ago. Her contribution, gas money occasionally. The sale took an hour. A young couple came by, handed me a cashier's check, and drove it off the lot. $11,800 wired to my account before sunset. When the confirmation email came through, I opened the Boundaries folder, added a new document. Vehicle title transfer, complete. Then, with the same calm precision I'd used all along, I exported everything: texts, receipts, the signed lease, her livestream screenshots, the pickup acknowledgement she refused to sign, into a single file labeled boundaries.pdf. The name felt poetic, almost ceremonial. By evening, the only sound left in the apartment was the hum of the fridge and the soft clink of my glass as I poured a drink. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't cataloging her chaos. I was closing the record. Every decision, every screenshot, every signature had been small acts of self-defense. Together, they formed something cleaner than revenge. Proof. And when I sat down that night, I didn't feel angry anymore. Just finished. The calm didn't last. It never does with people who need noise to exist. A week after the pickup, I opened my email to find a message from the building manager. Subject: Anonymous Safety Concern. The body was short and formal. We received a report alleging yelling, intimidation, and aggressive behavior in your unit. Please be advised this will be noted in your tenant record while we investigate. Yelling, intimidation. The irony nearly made me laugh out loud. I hadn't raised my voice once during any of it. Not when she'd live-streamed me, not when she'd screamed in the hallway, not when she'd flung accusations like confetti. I called the manager immediately. She sounded tired, the kind of weary that comes from too many late-night neighbor disputes. We already know who filed it, she sighed. Her mother called us too. Don't worry, we're noting it as unfounded. Just protocol. Appreciate it, I said. If they show up again, should I call security first or you? Security, she said without hesitation. And maybe record it. You seem good at that. She wasn't wrong. 2 days later, Jason finally texted. The digital equivalent of rattling my doorknob. Give her the car money or things get messy. No punctuation. Just a threat wrapped in cowardice. I didn't reply. Instead, I did what I always did now, documented. Screenshot, timestamp, archive. Then I forwarded it straight to my attorney, Mr. Patel. Patel was a quiet man with a courtroom calm that made chaos shrink. When I arrived at his office, he already had my boundaries.pdf printed and tabbed. He flipped through it with the same clinical focus a surgeon uses before an incision. Title's yours, he said, glancing up through his glasses. Locks are legal. The notice was reasonable. You returned her property and kept records of delivery. The car sales documented and uncontested. He turned another page, highlighting Jason's text with a neat yellow line. And now we have a direct threat. If they contact you again, we'll file for a restraining order. In the meantime, I'll send a formal cease and desist. It'll quiet them down. People like this crumble when attention turns official. He smiled faintly, tapping the file. You know, most people come to me with a storm of emotions and no proof. You came with a complete audit. I shrugged. Guess I process chaos like an accountant. He leaned back. That's not a bad thing. Boredom, Mr. Davis, that's what wins these wars. Paperwork and patience. Driving home, I thought about that boredom as armor. How every calm response, every screenshot, every deliberate silence had built a wall they couldn't climb. They thrived on reaction. I gave them documentation. That night, I filed Patel's letter in the boundaries folder, under a new subheading, Legal Correspondence. Outside, snow began to fall, muting the city's noise. For the first time in months, I realized I wasn't waiting for the next ambush. I'd already won, quietly, methodically, on paper. Emily could post, cry, threaten, or twist the story however she wanted. I had the truth, boring, dated, notarized truth. And that's when I understood. The most powerful armor in chaos isn't anger or eloquence. It's boredom backed by receipts. 2 months later, Emily reinvented herself again. This time as a survivor of narcissistic control. TikToks, Reels, inspirational quotes against sunset backdrops. Her face framed by soft filters and carefully curated tears. "Ladies," she said in one clip, "if he needs receipts, he doesn't need you." The comments poured in heart emojis, affirmations, strangers writing paragraphs about their own villains. For about a week, she was trending, a minor folk hero in the digital theater of pain. But like all noise, it faded fast. The algorithm got bored before I did. By the time her views hit double digits again, I was living in a different rhythm. The apartment, once tense with echoes of old arguments, had become quiet in a way that felt earned. I repainted the walls, a pale gray that didn't remember her fingerprints. Sold the brass bar cart she'd bought for content. Donated the framed prints she'd hung for aesthetic value. The ring light was the last to go. I unplugged it one night while music played low from the speakers, unscrewed the tripod, and leaned it against the wall by the door. It looked absurdly small without the glow. Just another piece of plastic she'd used to make performance look like healing. A week later, a letter arrived from a law office I didn't recognize, the kind that still uses Comic Sans on its letterhead. Inside was a single-page demand. Our client, Ms. Emily Rhodes, seeks $9,000 in emotional damages for distress caused by your hostile behavior and public humiliation. I smiled before I even finished reading. Mr. Patel did too when I dropped it off at his office. He skimmed it, sighed, then reached for his pen. "They always make one last noise before the silence," he said. His response was surgical. 3 pages of documentation, timestamps, photos, and witness records. Every lie gently dismantled with a fact. The final paragraph was only 3 sentences long. "Our client acted within his legal and moral rights at all times. Your client's claims are without basis or merit. This correspondence shall serve as notice that further contact will constitute harassment." We mailed it certified. A week later, she posted one last vague story about choosing peace, a phrase she'd never understood but desperately wanted to brand. After that, nothing. No calls, no texts, no letters. Just silence, the real kind this time. I started sleeping through the night again. No jolts from phantom notifications. No dreams of slammed doors or echoing arguments. I'd wake to the sound of the city. Distant sirens, the hum of traffic, someone walking their dog downstairs, and realize that none of it involved me. The strange how peace doesn't arrive like fireworks. It creeps in slowly, like dawn through blinds. One morning you realize you've gone 3 whole days without thinking of the person who used to occupy every thought. You make breakfast, you hum, you notice the sound of your own life again. Emily had chosen audiences. I had chosen silence. And as I locked the door one night, a door that now only opened for me, I understood something that had taken months of chaos to learn. Space isn't punishment. It's freedom signed, sealed, and notarized in peace. The sound of the final lock clicking shut wasn't loneliness anymore. It was closure.